From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Democrats have taken control of the House of Representatives in the U.S. midterm elections, while Republicans have expanded their majority in the Senate. Democrats have taken 219 seats in the lower chamber, gaining one more seat they needed to control it. This is the first time in 8 years the House of Representatives is controlled by the Democrats, restricting President Donald Trump's ability to pass his proposals through Congress. Republicans have lost 26 seats in the House, keeping 193, but the GOP confirmed their majority in the Senate, taking 51 seats, just the number they needed to control the chamber, against 45 seats the Democrats have taken. Many see this as an indication the country's political division may only be deepening. President Trump has cheered the election results, ignoring the Democrats' victory in the lower house. Trump took to Twitter to describe this election as a tremendous success, but this midterm vote was considered a referendum regarding Trump's administration. The outcome has shaped a contentious battleground for the 2020 presidential race. Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has made history as the youngest woman elected to Congress. The 29-year-old activist and politician of Puerto Rican heritage attracted voters with her pro-working class proposals and her defense of migrants and minorities. Many believe Ocasio-Cortez represents a change against the establishment in the Democratic Party.
What we are standing up for is what is right. That's right. And we will never be ashamed for fighting for what is right.
Earlier on, during a voting day, Ocasio-Cortez promised to promote real change if she was elected.
Oh, well, I am proudly running as a Democrat, and I anticipate and really look forward to collaborating as much as we can as a party in order to make sure that we get a progressive agenda realized.
It's not necessary to have representatives who take money from corporations, but we can have officials who only work for the people in the community.
Two other women also made history in the election. Michigan Democrat Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party are the first Muslim woman to be elected to Congress. Tlaib made history as the first Palestinian American congresswoman, while Omar has become the first Somali American and former refugee to win a seat in the U.S. Congress.
As we fight to protect our immigrant families, our neighbors, our children, our planet, our communities, I promise to always have your back.
Indigenous women Deb Haaland and Sharice Davis have also made history, becoming the first Native American woman to be elected. Haaland defeated Republican Janice Arnold-Jones in New Mexico, while Democrat candidate Davis won Kansas over Kevin Yoder Davis, is also openly lesbian. More than 100 women have won mainly Congress seats in their races across the country, a win also for minorities. Voters have chosen the first two Muslim women for Congress, the first Native American, the first black woman in Massachusetts and Connecticut, and two Latina women Americans for Texas for the first time. Women are also present in the LGBT community. Meanwhile, the U.S. midterm lost its historic potential for black candidates. Andrew Gilliam was defeated in his bid to become the first black governor of all Florida, barely outaged the Republican Ron DeSantis. And Stacey Abrams, the Democratic candidate who aimed to be the first black woman governor in the U.S., refused to concede defeat. In a rousing speech, she told supporters they will get a chance to do a do-over.
If I wasn't your first choice, or if you made no choice at all, you're going to have a chance to do a do-over. And I need you to know that it is my mission to serve you, to serve Georgia, to make you proud. And for those who didn't pick me the first time, to change your mind about me and what we can accomplish together.
Experts say the massive voter turnout is due to the involvement of social movements, and a group of drag queens is doing its part. The group dragged them to the polls from Fayetteville, Arkansas, spent the election day driving voters to their polling stations. They say they wanted to help people who cannot make it to the polls with this free ride. According to the group, dozens of people use the service. And after casting their votes, citizens expressed their desires for a better future for the country.
I'm afraid that in my ideal world, many of the most extreme partisans and short-term thinkers, particularly short-term thinkers and base inflamers on both sides, particularly the Republican side, ought not to be reelected. But in the reward system that we've got now, I'm not very optimistic about that.
I think politics are very important, and I think more people need to be involved. I think government does many good things. You know, the Republicans have wrecked respect for government by doing some things very, very badly, but generally I have a positive view of government at all levels.
Elections have also taken place in the Caribbean. Grenada and Antigua and Barbuda voted against adopting the Caribbean Court of Justice as their final appeal court. In a bid to replace the Privy Council based in the UK, experts have argued that the Privy Council is the last vestige of colonialism in the region and should be removed, but citizens appear to believe otherwise. Grenada's Prime Minister Keith Mitchell addressed the nation after the results were announced.
And the country would have been better off because our final court would in fact be led and adjudicated by Caribbean people who understand our issues. And they would, of course, be able to help us to deal with the present of the lower courts, which is a serious issue that we're facing in our country. So I'm saying it's unfortunate. People must not play games with the lives of the people that they're supposed to serve.
Our correspondent in Antigua and Barbuda, Gemma Handy, brings us more details on this vote.
People in 2 Caribbean countries have voted to retain the London-based Privy Council as their final court of appeal. Voters in Antigua and Barbuda and also Grenada headed to the polls on Tuesday to determine whether to replace the British body with the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ. Just under half of people in each country voted in favour of adopting the CCJ. Decades have passed since independence for the 2 countries, and for many, using the CCJ is seen as a matter of regional pride and an important step towards breaking age-old colonial ties. Advocates say the CCJ, which travels between the Caribbean islands, offers greater access to justice, as the cost of travel to London can be prohibitive. Critics fear political interference in the judicial process and a lack of impartiality among judges in small Caribbean nations. It's now 13 years since the CCJ heard its first case, but to date only 4 countries have officially adopted it. They are Dominica, Guyana, Barbados and Belize. Gemma Handy, Telesur, Antigua.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives, Friday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Over 4,500 Central American migrants have arrived to Mexico City since Sunday. The city's government has set up a temporary shelter at a sports stadium where they have received food, medical attention, and clothes. The group is reportedly considering how long they'll stay in Mexico City before starting walking towards the United States. The closest border crossing for their current location is nearly 800 kilometers away.
We're heading to the US. Let's have faith in God that we are able to enter, even if Donald Trump says he won't let us in. Some of us have to get through. We all want the American dream.
Over a period of 5 years, nearly 60,000 unaccompanied minors have migrated in Honduras. According to children's rights organizations, there haven't been policies from the government to safeguard the children.
According to statistics, nearly 30% of the people who travel in the migrant caravans headed to the U.S. are children, almost all accompanied by one of their parents. Their testimonies say the state does not offer opportunities.
In our country, there is nothing. We have children, we have a family, we have parents. I come from the island of Roatan. Everything there is expensive. Electricity, rent. We are only working to pay for rent.
According to children rights defenders, migration is an extreme decision, which is usually taken when their life is threatened.
It's not only extreme poverty that is forcing people to leave, it's also violence. But if we had a state that protected people, they would find shelter. The problem is that even before threats, before murders, before extortions, people have no place to go.
Criminalization of young people by the government is added to living in poverty. If you live under poverty line, you are seen as a potential gang member.
For starters, there is political criminalization of the youth. Young people are seen as a problem, not as people who are being excluded and marginalized from the system. Therefore, while there are politics of that nature, then what we're going to have is young people who want to leave the country.
The absence of opportunities for jobs for adults adds greater vulnerability to minors, who are often left to be cared by third parties, without access to basic living conditions.
Many parents are forced to look for jobs in other municipalities or in other countries. So children are growing up vulnerable and facing different types of violence, because not having the right to free education is a form of violence.
From January to June 2018, 124 children were displaced in Honduras due to the threats from gangs in their communities.
After announcing the possible merger of the Agriculture and Environment Ministries, Brazil's President-elect Jair Bolsonaro has said that his government won't support giving land to indigenous people because that will put landlords at risk.
I have said that if it's up to me, we will not have more demarcations of indigenous lands in Brazil, because we have an indigenous area greater than the southeast region. The landlords cannot wake up and discover that through a decision of the executive, they will lose their own property to a new indigenous land.
Peru's Commission investigating corruption cases has discovered alleged crimes in the Almost Watering project involving former presidents Pedro Pablo Kuczynski and Ollanta Humala. The Commission's final report is saying that there is evidence that shows Kuczynski may have been involved in money laundering during his time as finance minister. Humala is reportedly linked to the illegal transfer of funds for the H2 Olmos company, a subsidiary of Odebrecht. Ecuador's jailed former vice president Jorge Glass has been rushed to the hospital. He apparently began to suffer blackouts, and his wife said his health has deteriorated sharply. Glass was transferred to a high-security prison in La Tacunga 2 weeks ago. Both he and his lawyers complained that this was an infringement of his rights. Glass was imprisoned last year in an alleged connection with the Odebrecht corruption scandal. France has given refugee status to former Chilean guerrilla member Ricardo Palma Salamanca, even after the Chilean government had asked for his extradition. Salamanca has been a fugitive for over 20 years after being sentenced for the murder of Senator Jaime Guzman.
Friends and family members of Ricardo Palma Salamanca are celebrating. They say that political asylum his wife and children have received we'll end with 2 decades of persecution and we'll let them live in peace.
They are grateful that French institutions have listened to them. France is a country where institutional powers are totally transparent and separate.
In his meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron last October, Chilean President Sebastián Piñera asked for the extradition of the former guerrilla member.
We talk about Palma Salamanca. What Chile wants is very simple. We want him back in Chile, where he was judged and sentenced for terrorism.
In April 1991, Ricardo Palma Salamanca, a former member of the Manuel Rodríguez Patriotic Front, killed Senator Jaime Guzmán, one of the collaborators in Augusto Pinochet's dictatorship.
Few times people have had access to justice, real justice. Through Ricardo, we can have some dignity, because who Ricardo killed, if Pinochet were Hitler, the man Ricardo killed would be Goebbels. Guzmán was the brains behind the massacre of Chilean people. The dictatorship was a two-headed dragon. One civilian head, one military. I lost my parents. Who is to say that Jaime Guzmán was not the one who planned my mother's murder?
Palma was sentenced to life imprisonment, but in 1996 he escaped from a high-security prison in a helicopter. Since then, authorities have been trying to bring him back to Chile.
We strongly believe there were violations of due process and of human rights, including torture, during Ricardo Palma Salamanca's trial.
Right-wing and left-wing parties are outraged by Palma's asylum. Many went to the French embassy in Santiago to leave a letter of complaint.
We are asking the French government to revise the situation. We don't know all the French institutions. We understand the institution that approved his asylum has members designated by the French government. So we think it is evident that something can be done.
Despite the fact the French government has made its decision, Chilean lawmakers still hope to see Palma Salamanca extradited.
Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel is in China to strengthen business and commercial and technological areas. During his visit, he will sign agreements on trade, renewable energy, and in the cooperation of the Belt and Road Initiative. China is the third stop on Díaz-Canel's first tour since he became president in April. A new round of layoffs is threatening just under 200 workers at Argentina's Telearte media network, also known as Channel 9. The company says many positions were made redundant by technological advances. There were also a cutback in television programs, which resulted in more layoffs. President Mauricio Macri has said that the economic adjustments made by his government has caused the unemployment rate to jump to 9.6%, the highest in 12 years. For the first time, Argentina has released a birth certificate without gender identification. Local government says the registered office must create a new form, including a line in the place reserved to register gender. People will also be able to ask for an ID without gender specification.
This gives me an internal peace, being able to reach legal statement on how I am and how I perceive myself. This is an achievement and a change in the world. If this can spread through the world and reach people that had never thought that can happen to them, and can be legal in that way.
The 17th Arts and Special Education Science Fair has taken place in the Coliseo Theater in Argentina's capital, Buenos Aires. Children and adults from various special education schools got to showcase their talents.
More than 700 children with special needs took part in the Arts and Special Education Science Fair. It was a magical moment filled with joy when they got to take the stage.
This is just a glimpse of what disabled people can achieve if their healthcare and education are strong. You can see many different schools with kids with different conditions. This experience is a way of labour education, art inclusion.
This is their time to shine through the singing, dancing, and theater plays. The performance is celebrated by their parents, teachers, and the general audience attending the event.
Here they can show everything they've learned and what they can do.
At a time when there are several judgments and right violations, it's important to keep this space open for them.
These schools are proving that they can give these children equal chances by equipping them with the knowledge and skills to perform.
It's intense, the kids are nervous. They've prepared for 6 months. It must have been the same for every participant.
It's very exciting. Discrimination against them is huge, so it's good for them to participate here.
This is a very nice experience. He's relaxed and it gives him confidence. It is an expression for, and it's good for him to break stereotypes and to feel free.
The stage of the Coliseo Theater has seen many performances. This event is organized by the Infancias Foundation to mark the 29th anniversary of the Declaration of Children's Rights by the General Assembly of the UN.
We'll take another short break now. More news in a minute.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Welcome back. Citizens in Madagascar are heading to the polls to elect the country's next president. 3 former presidents are the front-runners among 36 candidates to lead the country. The former French colony has struggled to overcome political divisions after a disputed 2001 election that sparked clashes and a 2009 military-backed coup. Nearly 10 million voters are eligible to select a president. Cameroon's President Paul Biya has been sworn in for a 7th term. During his speech, Biya has addressed the conflict in the country's English-speaking regions.
I want to emphasize that I have carefully considered the frustrations and aspirations of the vast majority of our compatriots in the northwest and southwest regions. A good number of responses to their concerns and aspirations will be provided as part of the acceleration of the ongoing decentralization process.
A new hearing has opened in Tunisia regarding the attack in the Bardo Museum that killed 22 people in March 2015. Controversy has erupted over the video broadcast of the trial in a courtroom in Paris, as it was demanded by some of the victims. 22 out of the 25 accused have refused to appear. Their lawyers explained they refused to be filmed. Meanwhile, the victims' legal team said there is no reason for this controversy.
It was organized between the Tunisian court and the appeals court in Paris, that it would be possible to follow the courtroom from Paris in a secure room just for the victims and the lawyers. No journalists, no public. It's a retransmission which is not, to my knowledge, recorded, so there are no traces that will remain. It's a retransmission and the victims are filmed from behind and from the back of the room, so we don't see the face of anybody.
Rwanda's young politician Diane Rwigara said the country is like a prison under President Paul Kagame's rule. She is facing charges on treason, insurrection and foraging in a trial that is set to start this Wednesday.
I definitely will continue with the movement, and I want it to be the channel through which Rwandan voices, our voices, can be heard. I want it to be the place, the platform for us to come together and ask for change, because we need change in our country. We need to be free.
A cybersecurity school has been launched in Senegal's capital, Dakar. The National School of Regional Cybersecurity will train African executives to better face threats online. It will provide courses in computer security, cybercrime, digital intelligence, and cyber governance. The school has been inaugurated by the French Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jean-Yves Le Drian, and his Senegalese counterpart, Sidi Kabak.
The purpose of this establishment is to strengthen cooperation, which is the only way to prevent and reduce cyber attacks by defining and acquiring the most appropriate technology to protect strategic information and promote the sharing of information on terrorist groups.
South Africa Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba has threatened that there will be hell if he is removed from his post. Even in an interview, he said that African National Congress is his home and he will therefore not take kindly to any attempts to remove him from his part and his cabinet position. There have been numerous calls for him to be fired from both positions after an investigation found that he lied under oath. And we come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories you can find on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And for our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.